Okay, so now it's the fun part, and we are encouraging questions from you all. And so please feel free to come up to the mic. I'm not sure if we're able to manage those coming in from online, so to speak. But I'll start off. So I want to know from each of you what is the greatest challenge to close the gap to where we truly have AI-read echocardiograms. So what is the greatest challenge? There was mention of data, implementation size, cost. What is the greatest one challenge you see?
One of the greatest challenge in echocardiography model, I think, is all that models that are currently being trained and used are based upon retrospective, not well-curated data. It's just the average population, and there are so many readers who read. So there is I have a significant concern that when you train a model and if it has not been well labeled and it does not have the data set that you're interested, for example, you want to reduce the biases, you want to mitigate the racial, ethnic issues in the data set, you need to deliberately go and collect the data which is better, like the way you want to develop the model, and then train the model. That's not what is being done in the industry at the moment. We go on retrospective data, which is archived, and we put in and develop. And as a result, I think there are significant biases in the model that currently exist. This is the number one challenge. And the second challenge is, as I mentioned, the transparency of the model prediction is not there at the moment. The neural networks are very opaque. So I mean, in echo, if someone is drawing and the output can be examined, that is fine. But if it just tells, oh, there is amyloid, well, why did it tell? And you can't examine it, then that model is going to be opaque, and they could be concerned because we don't even know if it's hallucinating. And there are consequences because you give a prediction to the patient. And these are some of the concerns, major concerns that are currently need to be overcome in adoption.
So having said that, there are companies that are already offering their services based on purely curated data with biases and hallucinations and all that. And they are, I mean, you can call them and they come to your place and see what you have and give you a quotation, you know, give me $10 and I'll give you a report that includes the basics measurements at that. And I don't know if they come with a diagnosis. This is unclear, no? But I can find possible that aortic stenosis will be diagnosed, maybe in the future, mitral regurgitation, these type of things. But if for us it's so difficult to come into agreement with these things, I mean, I can imagine if that data is retrospective, what type of results. So I think it's a multi-phase problem. And the other, obviously, is the quality of the raw data. No? I mean, you guys read echocardiograms and you see sometimes it's impossible to make much out of it. No? So I think it's a technique that probably will come, but it still needs to be integrated better. The data has to be stronger for us to really take it into account. I think the other thing is this maybe do less. If these machines were able to identify the true normals, maybe as a combination of the EKG and the echo, then you probably have to read them, and maybe the machine will be solid enough that you concentrate in the difficult case.
So I have a question. Maybe a month ago, a Chinese company, DeepSeek, found a way to do AI on the cheap compared to NVIDIA. Now, the cost is prohibitive, but perhaps in time it could be cost way down. You see that as a future that, in other words, it could be a lot cheaper to do. And the other thing is, as I heard about if we're reading, 40 studies a day and you have AI enhanced, you're going to have to read 60. And what's the government going to pay for that? It's going to be like, $2 an echo. Is that feasible? So what are the comments about that?
No, I think that's very important. So I think there is this is an area of considerable debate at the moment. But there is a concern that I think when OpenAI started, initially it was supposed to be all open, and then it became a pay-for-service and different type of a model. So more and more there is a suggestion that as we are developing the models, it should be open source. And certainly in research, and in at least in publications, we are seeing a drive towards open source so that you can share and you can understand the performance of the model. And that's what makes a model or the expense goes down. And we, as a conceptually, we advance without there being lots of costs. So I think this is a work with the industry and on how we bring down the cost of training and have an evolution in which we can participate. The current problem is also a participation. I think all of the physicians, and at least in the clinical community, we are just on the receiving end. We are not actively participating, so that's another concern. And I think the second question that you asked, Alan, was
The number.
You said open source, but like that Chinese company really found a
Yes.
way to do.
So there is a clear threat. I mean, what I'm saying is that globally, this is going to be a big competition, and who's going to be better. And there's a huge competition, and also the cost is going to come down because of those reasons. But there was another question.
Wait, about the reimbursement. Like, in other words,
So
Medicare.
So I mean, I can just take the historically. Whenever we have replaced our work with something, I've never seen in industry that we will change ourselves. I mean, right now, for example, when we do our reports, we are doing the measurements and just coming to the diagnosis. But where is the heart team discussion and the using these models, and a person who can use multiple models and make a prediction of how a patient should be treated? So this therapeutic decision making, I think, is something I feel like as imagers we're going to evolve automatically. We already see that in structural heart, right? They try to fit in the valves and models are there. At least the companies are doing it. I think as physicians we need to know how to use which model where, so as to be able to arrive at the decision. So freeing up that time and doing this higher caliber activity, there may be new codes, and we could use that for improving our revenues.
So I think, again, nobody's going to stop this train, but the fact that the patients are diagnosed themselves, now only with questions, ChatGPT, I have, something in the skin and my eyes now, whatever, you have this diagnosed cancer. Now you're going to give these guys a probe, and by the way, this is my echo and the composition of the skin of my chest wall. So, I mean, again, you guys that are going to start practicing in the future, you are going to face a completely different reality. And again, nobody has the answer.
So I just wanted to also circle back. I'm going to want to assure everybody, nobody's going to go out of business. Human clinician is going to be in heavy demand. We are currently not having adequate number of trainees. Surgeons, physicians, highly skilled physicians are in demand. So we will be able to craft our own contracts, and we're going to go, because you will need humans. So I think, in my opinion, while a lot of work will be done by AI, like the physicians, the patients are going and using ChatGPT, and ultimately, but they need a human empathy and an interaction, because that is a very high value work. And I think that's why I think nobody is going out of business.
So,
Mauricio.
I have a couple of questions. One is about the hallucinations I didn't think about until I saw this presentation. So how is this, so the first question is, how is this regulated? And the second, if the FDA is going to have any, because as with any diagnostic study, it has to be regulated. And then the second is, what is going to prevent from people, and like they do these CT angio fairs. So what is it going to prevent, AI read echoes for people to go and just do shopping and then come back to the clinic? Oh, I got this diagnosis, I got these other diagnoses with all AI-generated reports, because people tend to take shortcuts. You guys are excellent clinicians, but, there's sleaziness everywhere.
So at least FDA has developed a clear pathway for regulation, and I think this is continuously evolving. And most of the commercially available products out in the market at the moment are ones which are called as very narrow AI, which means that somebody that does ejection fraction, something that does longitudinal strain, So where you can evaluate it, there's a process on how you evaluate and you can test it. And so those are the products currently you're seeing. Now, the one which are one with a black box and multimodal or the large language model are the one where you see hallucinations, where it just comes up with information that is not true. And the hallucination of the large language model is a major concern that has not been mitigated. And for those reasons, I think there is actually a divide in the AI industry. On one side, people are using LLMs and with all its drawbacks. But on the other side, actually you must have seen that very recently I have started writing very cautious interpretation of how to use AI, because everybody's thinking everything can be done with AI and AI is the solution to everything. That's not true. And we need to know as a community what kind of tool we can use. LLMs is a big risk in terms of hallucination. But having said that, for changing the grammar or changing the report typing, and as long as you can edit it correctly yourself with a human in the loop, that's fine. And I think there were some other components which the patients coming with all those reports, that's already happening. And it's going to be a reality, because the reason they are doing it is because they cannot get a human interaction with the physician. They're waiting for weeks to get an appointment, and that's going to continue to evolve.
I'm to apologize, I have to play to catch, but again, thanks very much for the participation.
I think the train is left, so to speak, right? AI is evolving. What is your greatest lesson learned? What advice would you give to those that want to launch investigation in this space, either at hospital level or system level? Like, reflect back. What are your take-home messages?
I think my take-home message is that this is a very strong inflection point in our growth. I think all in clinical investigations, translational work, any work that we do in research will have imprint of AI. So the first thing is how do we get the basic tenets of how do we use AI? And it's a good time and opportunity for all people who are enthusiastic. There are lots of different courses available to go on how to use these models. How do you use ChatGPT? What is called as prompt engineering, where you can, I don't know if you know of these terms, where you don't have to write a single line of code, and you can actually train AI algorithms that can work on images. So having this basic understanding is very critical, because it will be needed for you to interact with the engineers and some of the workers. And once you do that, you will be able to realize that it takes the investigations to a completely new direction. And this is eminent, and I think even clinical trials will be done in something what is called as clinical trials in silico, where patients are not going to be treated. It's going to be models and virtual patients first therapy. Many of the drug discoveries are not requiring any more translational animal work. They're happening in models, and drugs are being discovered, and patients are being treated on that. So the COVID vaccine is a perfect example of that. It did not develop. It was all in models.
Simran.
I have a very quick question about medical writing and AI. Like, it takes us months to write a good review, clinical review, and a book chapter. But how do we control if someone just put it in ChatGPT and send it over to the reviewers? Because there's no way to truly know if it was written by a physician or it was automatically generated, was plagiarized.
Yeah. So I will tell the position of Jack on this. So Jack, when Dr. Fuster was there, was very prohibitive on use of generative AI for writing. When Harlan Krumholtz took over, it was opened up. So now Jack and Jack journals do not stop you from using generative AI. But whatever you write, you have to take full credit for authentic aspect of it. So what I'm saying is, like, yes, if you want to correct the grammar or the content or the writing, why not? But I think you finally have to take the responsibility. As long as you can take the full responsibility of the content, where is you need to know when any information is being presented, you need to critically make sure that you agree and that is correct. Then it is fine. And I would actually encourage everybody to use sources like Grammarly. I don't know if you have it on your emails and all. It makes your emails much more readable. Sometimes, you don't have those terrible emails that are constructed which transmit a wrong information or a wrong emotion. So you can really change your communication style and output using some of these tools.
Thank you.
So Partho, being an associate editor of a journal, more and more articles on AI. So how are they treated now? In other words, in the old days, it was probably easy to get in because it's so unique. Now it's so common. How do the journals screen? There's a section, AI section in the journals, or is there an article comes on AI? How is that being treated?
So
I think now?
So we embarked on a checklist for AI. So when you are making, the checklist has to be fulfilled. So whenever you're submitting to JACC Imaging, that checklist provides a certain degree of guarantee that all the steps that are necessary have been followed through. Because many times a reviewer who is doing the review is a clinical clinician. He may not have an understanding of the AI side. So we have a checklist, and we are going to update it very shortly. But when it comes to particularly, most of the imaging AI come to a few of the associate editors. One thing which we really insist is validation, which is done externally and also potentially prospectively or in many cohorts. Because you're free to develop a model, but I think it's very important to make sure that it will work in heterogeneous environment. Because if that is not made available, then also it is important to make the model or some of the codes or something that is available to the community so that they can use and validate it. And that's going to be more and more required.
I also encourage the residents or fellows in the audience, as research, you should learn the technology behind AI and get involved because to me that's in terms of future, every paper is just about an AI derived different things, whether it's the EKG, but that's prime research. And Partho started way back when. He was an early adopter and a good promoter. But thank you, Partho, for coming, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you.